Welcome everyone to another Push Start event. This week we are talking about marketing and not just the normal gimmicky marketing stuff that you get pitched all the time from your Instagram reels and I'll call out that bodybuilder with the mustache that throws all these offers out there. You know what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about some real world strategies and tactics that are actually effective. And I have with us Mr. Mark Fisher, co founder of Business for Unicorns, which is making a splash in the micro gym area, in case you guys haven't been paying attention. With that, you're good to kick off, right, Mark? You're good
Yeah,
to jump right in. Nice. Can you do
yeah,
us? Can you
let's
do
do
us a
it.
favor and give us a little bit about your background and how you became an expert on all this stuff?
Yep, yep. I'll try to give you the concise version, but a little more context about my background. Short version is I was a professional actor, live in New York City. Got really into training in spite of growing up not being into sports and being very skinny. Slowly, I started to like training more than I liked acting because even though acting was going okay, there were just a lot of gatekeepers involved, and I started reading about business, and I thought maybe I can do this instead. And because I was training and friends with a lot of people in the Broadway community, it kind of made sense to sort of, start with the people I knew. And we'll probably talk about that today as far as one of the models for how I think about marketing. And yeah, to make a long story short, I opened up a very strange, weird, glittery, gay unicorn gym in New York City called Mark Fisher Fitness, which was specifically designed for Broadway people. And because of that, the brand sort of encapsulated, I think, a lot of my both irreverent approach, but a real desire to bring very serious strength and conditioning to the people that we worked with. Because, my sense strongly is the Broadway community was particularly underserved because a lot of the best people in strength and conditioning with great love were not going to be resonant with that group of individuals. So the tagline was ridiculous humans, serious fitness. So we really want, again, it's serious about the fitness, but we wanted to make it fun for our clients. So in fact, we didn't call them clients. We became well known for brand because we didn't call them clients, we called them ninjas. The mascot, as you can tell, was the unicorn. We didn't call it a gym. It was the enchanted ninja clubhouse of glory and dreams. And yeah, it sort of took off. It went kind of crazy town. So we founded that in the end of 2011. By around 2015, we started getting picked up in a lot of the local, national, both fitness and mainstream media. We were on Men's Health as one of the top gyms in America. We were listed on the Inc. 500 as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in America. We did a TEDx talk on culture. And then that started opening up more opportunities for me to do more speaking and consulting and talking about business stuff, which wound up being a really good conflagration of things I was interested in, having been a former professional actor, having quite liked fitness, and at that point, having thought a lot about business. So that was the birth of what became the company called Business for Unicorns. Flash forward a little bit today. The last things I'll say that are relevant to the combo is first off, I sold MFF at the end of last year, which is still quite strange to me. So MFF still exists. But it's owned by somebody else. It's right across the river from where I'm sitting. They're still doing very well. Very happy to say the somewhat gauche number that gets thrown around is we did $34 million during the run. We sold it. That's awesome, and that freed up all my time to focus on Business for Unicorns. So these days, my focus is just how do I help gym owners make more income, more impact, and more freedom. And I'm lucky to work with actually a few actually people on this call, happily. And the last thing I'll say is I still own a gym in New Jersey. So another thing to understand that I think informs how I think about this is I am a semi-absentee owner of a six-on-one small group franchise. So I'm a franchisee in this brand in New Jersey. And that's been interesting too, because that gives me an opportunity to run a gym that's a little bit more normative in brand and modest in scale, but in a way that's a little bit more comparable to a lot of the clients I work with. So I'm able to run that happily with an amazing fitness director, a former MFF team member that works out there too. And that's sort of been interesting, right? So between working with a lot of gym owners from all over the world and then owning this strange, enormous, weirdly branded gym in Midtown Manhattan, and then owning this more traditional six-on-one, profitable but normal size, non-crazy branded gym in New Jersey. It's an interesting sort of data set to have to pull from there, and I'll kind of pull up there, and now you know a little bit about where I'm coming from and how I've come to some of the things that I have learned, often through scraped knees and painful experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. What a phenomenal background. That's pretty amazing. And I I can't help but grasp at some specific words that you used throughout your background right there that kind of lends itself to marketing. Specifically, you use the word branding, you use the word
Mhm.
culture, and to me, it's just hearing that quick snippet and through our couple of discussions that we've had previous to this, it is even more apparent that branding and culture has such a unique and such a major impact on marketing beyond the
Yeah,
actual tactics that you use and the strategy that you have. So I'm hoping we get to learn a little bit about that maybe today because I
yeah,
am feeling you have a maybe not a unique perspective, but something that is highly valuable for us. Speaking of which,
yeah.
what are we looking to learn about today? I mean, marketing is such a broad topic. It does encompass culture and branding and
Totally.
design and all this stuff. What can you narrow down what you plan on teaching us? Give
Yep.
us a summary and like why you think it's valuable.
Yeah, totally. So, I think first of all, that's a great point. When we talk about marketing, it's actually a bucket term. There's a lot of different skill sets that are involved in marketing, particularly if you think of the macro bucket of marketing and sales, right? Because although this is an imperfect model, you can think of your gym as like you get the clients and then you take care of the clients, right? And again, that's a reductive model, but I think it's useful here. So if we're talking about getting the clients and marketing, that can mean a lot of things. So today, the focus is specifically on how to generate new leads, right? So if
Mm,
all of marketing is a process of going from people not knowing you exist to somehow discovering you, right? Knowing you exist, and then some process of them liking and trusting and ultimately hiring you, we're really focusing on that first piece today, right? What are the things that a gym owner can do so the people in your community that don't know you exist can find out you exist and begin the process to ideally raise their hands to step forward, take some action on the path to working with you in a more substantive way. So it's focused really on lead generation, though I will tease that I think the best form of lead generation is generating the leads you already have. So I
mm.
should tell you more about in a minute.
That's a real. You say reductionist, but it keeps things simple for the gym owner that
Yeah.
may not be coming from a business background. It's
Yep.
like, hey, we're going to focus today on the aspect of marketing that just builds awareness in your community.
Totally.
People, in order to buy from you, they need to know about you, right?
Yep.
Okay, I love that, and don't I felt like you were selling yourself short by saying reductionist, and no, I think
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's simple is important.
It's a
Um,
useful model. Yeah. It's a useful reaction. Yep.
all right, so are you gonna present? Do you have a specific order that you want to present in or talk about things, or is there
Yeah.
a specific
Y-
strategy or tactic that
Yep.
is
Yep.
that we want to start with? Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with to my mind, I think I'll say this. Okay. If you're thinking about if you want more leads, okay, if you're a gym owner and you're not getting enough leads, you're maybe getting a trickle, the ones you're getting feel like they're happening sort of completely organically and you're happy to be get them, but you don't feel like you have any levers to pull to actually drive more leads in an intentional way. That's really what we're talking about today. And I'll say this. When you think about the systems that a gym needs, okay, for marketing, even if you're going through the entire spectrum all the way like from all of marketing, all of sales, I kind of feel like there's like 22-ish different systems or tools that you could use, right? And if anybody wants, like, I have a free resource on this. If you go to gymmarketingsecretsbook.com, you can download it's a less than a 30-minute read. It's really more of like a pamphlet, but essentially it's a book about marketing. And for the typical brick and mortar gym, you have like 22-ish different tools and systems. Okay. Now, the thing to understand if that feels overwhelming is in most situations, you should not use all of these. Okay. Because some of them are going to be more effective than others. And in fact, if we really drill down on what are the particular strategies and systems you can use to take somebody from not knowing you exist to knowing you exist, again, ideally, so they can raise their hand, you can get contact information, they can start that first step towards working with you. You're probably looking about, depending on how you count them, probably 7 to 9 items. And I got news here and make it even simpler for you. Okay. For the average gym owner and the average market with the average model and average skill, there's probably three. There's three of them, the three arrows I'm going to pull from my quiver most of the time if you're looking to drive more leads for your gym. Okay.
These
So
are like the three like everybody should be doing these. These are the three true aim. Like they're always 90% of the time maybe
In
going to work.
90% of the time is right. Yeah,
Okay.
they're most of the time they're going to represent the biggest results, the biggest impact for the time and energy and potentially money invested, okay,
Best
across all
ROI.
markets. Yep,
Nice.
best ROI, right?
Cool.
So let me, if it's okay, let me just kind of talk through the core ones as I see them. Okay, I'm going to talk through
Mhm.
these first three. I'll say some other ones that you might want to consider, and if and when you might want to consider them, and then we can sort of drill down a little bit on the nuances of when you might use what I consider to be the three most powerful tools, and how to do them effectively. Okay. So when we're talking about activities that are going to generate leads, again, when you're going out there and you, the gym, are looking for prospects, we are usually going to be getting our best bang for the buck from a paid ad strategy, right? Usually not always paid meta. Sometimes it could be Google, but it's usually paid meta. In most markets, you're going to get better cost per acquisition. You have referral strategies, right? You may or may not have them. A lot of gym owners do this very organically, but I'll make the case that unless we're really giving clients a time sensitive reason to take some action, we could be doing a better job of shaking that lead fruit from the lead tree. And then the third strategy is going to be some sort of local business partnership play. This one, I got to tell you, is one that bedeviled me for a long time. I have some relatively new things I feel like I've just learned in the past year after really having some issues with this that I think can help you understand if you've tried this before and hasn't gone well. I have both some perhaps updating of your expectations as well as some very specific tactics you can use for this to be more effective. Okay.
Mm.
Now, again, we want to qualify one more time. Does that mean everybody on this call needs to be doing paid ads? No, not necessarily. Right. And in fact, when you are earlier in your journey, you might not need them. You might not be able to afford them. You can probably, in most situations, grow up to a certain point without kind of any paid ad strategy. And frankly, on the other end of the rainbow, if your gym is relatively stable and relatively mature, if you are maybe just a really, really, really difficult market where, in spite of your efforts, cost per lead is very, very high, then there's a case maybe that you don't need to do it then. But most gym owners will reach some inflection point where they really want more volume and more scale, which requires getting more total leads, where it will make sense to at least consider some paid ads. Okay. No referrals. And again, I'm going to loop through all these again. So come with me on this
Mhm.
journey. So if anyone's feeling like, well, I'm going to keep looping through. Okay. So referrals are amazing, right? We all love referrals, right? It's the best kind of new client you can get is someone's coming in really pre-sold. They're really bought in. They've self-selected based on what a friend has told them. And the challenge with referrals are they're a function of the volume of the size of your gym. So if you only have 30 clients, you're going to get very different results than if you have 300 clients, right? And that's probably obvious to say, but it's worth saying this out loud because if you go to the well thinking like, oh, I have a new referral offer I'm going to launch, you're just going to be getting different results with 30 clients versus 300. But you should still do it. I might say that's the one. If I was going to tell you there's one that almost always has to be in play, it's probably some sort of time sensitive referral offer. Okay.
Mm.
And then the third piece, again, you have the local business partnerships. Local business partnerships, I got to tell you, I'm going to give you some specific things to make them more effective, but they're higher risk, higher return. So, what I mean when I say that, I mean that the challenge with local business partnerships is you might talk to lots of local business and just get nothing. And there's things you can do to make it more effective. Or you could talk to three local businesses, and the third one you talk to totally gets it, is ready to play ball, is excited to cross promote with you, and starts driving you 2 to 3 new leads every week for months at a time, which for some gym owners, that can really change the game, right? Because
Absolutely.
also, yeah, these are people coming in from another partner that has already built a base of trust that they're transferring over to you. Okay. So before we dig into those three a little bit more, I just want to mention there's some other things you could do, right? You might be thinking in your head, okay, what about X? What about X? Okay. Well, to my mind, you could also consider doing something like posting in local Facebook groups.
Mm.
Again, they all become a certain, they're all kind of tests at a certain point, right? So again, not wrong to do any of these. I just think in general, the first three I mentioned are going to get the best bang for your limited time and energy and money. But certainly, listen, posting in local Facebook groups is not a bad idea. I will tell you anecdotally, it's a very interesting thing I've observed across the gyms that I work with, the gyms that I've owned. Local Facebook groups seem to do best if you're in a hyper dense urban market and a
Yep.
very rural market. Little more hit or miss if you're in a more traditional mid-sized suburban market. But if you're in a place like Midtown Manhattan or you're in a rural market, those Facebook groups can be very, very valuable. You could also consider direct mail. Direct mail can still work well in a lot of markets. It's another kind of paid advertising.
Yep.
The thing to know about that is you will, in most situations, need to do at least at least 3 mailings out 30 days apart is the old best practice. And then, of course, you need to have a good offer. The flyer needs to be designed well. Again, a lot more beyond the scope we have time to talk about today, but I do think that can still work in a lot of markets. It would just tend to be a little bit more expensive to acquire a client than versus paid ads, right? Then, we're already starting to like kind of get to the bottom of like, what else can you do? Okay. Another strategy I quite like that I won't go into great detail because it only makes sense for mostly when you're early innings. This is going to sound so dumb. Just go talk to people in your community, right? So when I was
Mm,
opening up my gym in my New Jersey, we had a lot of headwinds in the beginning, and it took us a while to really align on a paid strategy. So you can just go in the community with like a business card with like you as the owner. And this works best if the owner does it, but you can train your team on this. And essentially, what we did for a long time was we just had a weekly KPI where all three members of the team had to have at least 5 conversations with strangers every week where the conversation starts and we have a simple script that we give to members of the unicorn side of it. Like it's not that complicated. It's basically just like, hey there, do you live in the area? Just wondering, might you be interested in blah, 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 whatever the offer is, right? And essentially, what you're looking to do with all of these strategies, right? At a high level, remember the principle is going from not knowing to knowing. The principle is nobody can hire you if they don't know you exist. You're looking to become 3 mile famous. You want to obliterate obscurity. All of these strategies, when you take them together, are designed so that if you walk into a local nail salon or like a local gas station and someone yells, hey, who's the best trainer? What's the best gym in the area? Ideally, your name should be on everyone's lips because you're omnipresent. You become
yep.
completely unavoidable in that local market, right? And again, you do have to consider Facebook group being a great example of this. You do have to consider the markets again, because the strategies, and I'll tell you, in Midtown Manhattan are a little bit different than if you're in a more suburban market, right? After
Mark,
that,
I,
yep, go
I
ahead.
want I want to touch on that because it reminds me that was back when I originally opened up my first gym back in Las
Uh huh.
Vegas. That was a tactic that I didn't know anything about marketing officially.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
a tactic that
yeah,
we employed was just
yeah,
walking around. We went to Whole Foods, we went to the Chamber of Commerce,
yep,
we went to the surrounding businesses, and we
yep,
just talked to people. And
yep.
is that but that is you're saying that's still a viable tactic. Huh.
I think it is, and listen again, because to your point, like back in the day, that was kind of all you could do, right? But
Right.
if you look at, as recently as the late 2010s, and this was well after Facebook ads were going, there's a lot of how Orange Theory built their business, right? A lot of that playbook for pre-sales is you would go into the parking lot of the local Target with the owner and people, and you're just talking to individuals and you're offering free workouts, right? Now, I think the I'm going to share one more thing I think just to have on our radar, and then I think we've done essentially a comprehensive tour of how you might build brand awareness.
Cool.
Um, and then I want to talk a little bit about fishing poles versus fishing nets. So Zach,
Mm,
if you can remind me, you want to come back to fishing poles versus fishing nets. So the last way to generate more leads, right? And I'd call this a fishing pole because the gym is looking for prospects, might be doing things like setting up a table at a local township day and doing maybe a raffle for a free month of membership in exchange for contact information, and then of course everyone wins the second place prize, right, which is some sort of like either discounted first month or a time sensitive version of whatever your first front end offer you might offer is. And you think about like that's mostly it. I mean, you can get to more obscure things like you could maybe do a car wrap in some markets, you can maybe do a billboard, you can maybe do some traditional print media advertising if in your market you have a hyper local print publication. But and I'd love to just kind of open up any of those other things they think of as this is a great way to have someone go from I didn't know you exist to now the prospect knows you exist. I don't know that you have a lot else. I mean, like that's pretty comprehensive at this point. Okay.
yeah.
However,
If
go ahead.
anybody
You got
wants
one, Zach?
if
Yeah.
well, I'm just gonna say if anybody wants to come off mute and throw out a tactic that they've used that Mark hasn't named, I think Mark, I'm going through my head. That's all that I could possibly come up with, and I think gym owners, business owners in general, probably get frustrated because they've attempted many of those with low success.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's less about the method,
Yes.
what we'll find, and more about how you execute on that
Yes.
method.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that's where are fishing poles and nets related to that at all, or
Yeah. 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 So let's talk about this a little bit. Okay. So
okay, cool.
we've been talking, but we're talking about going from I didn't know you exist to knowing you exist. You could say there's two different kinds of tools and systems you can need. There's fishing nets and fishing poles. Okay. Well, what's the difference? Well, we've been talking about these tools that you can use as a gym owner when you're looking for a prospect. So I call these fishing poles. Now, the thing about all of these are they're a little bit more tough sledding because in every single one of these strategies, this is the gym getting in front of people that may or may not be looking for the solution, may or may not be qualified, may or may not, have goals that relate to what your gym helps create for your clients and your prospects. However, this is the best way for you to get out there, right? But by definition, a smaller percentage of the people you engage with when you're out there fishing with your fishing pole are going to be moving forward, right? So, as an example, if you're talking to a bunch of strangers in the parking lot of a nearby Target, you're playing the law of numbers. You need volume because not all of those people are going to be able to afford what you want. They might not want to work out. I mean, the things. There's all sorts of reasons why they might not move forward. So, when you're doing fishing pole, you have to make up for the fact that it's going to be a smaller throughput to take action with volume. Okay. But let's time out a fishing pole for a minute and talk a little bit more about what I call fishing nets. Okay. So, fishing nets are the tools, the systems, and strategies that you need in place for when a prospect is looking for a gem. So let me
Mm,
say that again. A fishing pole is when you, the gym, or I'm going to go out there looking for prospects. I'm going to talk to ideally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people so that tens of them take some action towards maybe working with me because I just happen to maybe catch them at the right time. Or I'm planting a seed so that maybe in a few months when it's the right time, I'm marketing them with their contact information, or maybe they remember I exist when they think like, oh, I just had a scary visit with my doctor. Wait, there was that friendly young man that talked to me in the Target parking lot 3 months ago. I think I have that business card somewhere. Okay. So if those are fishing poles. Fishing nets are what we do when a prospect is looking for a gym. Now, this is going to be lower total volume because you can't control that, right? You can't control when somebody is looking for a trainer or gym or fitness solution. But the throughput naturally is going to be higher because these are often what are called high intent prospects. So
mm.
just kind of throwing it out there, I'll ask rhetorically, and we don't even need to chat in chat box because you all know what it is. What are the two things that a prospect does when they're looking for a gym? And I'll give you a hint. They're the two things that you do when you're looking for a service provider. So let's say you're looking for a plumber. There's really two things you're going to do. What might you do? You're going to search online,
Yep.
or you're gonna John writes Google, right? Yep, that's it. And I would say I'll zoom out even a little bit more. I'll say online search, right? So online search, there's three places that people do an online search. You're going to Google like in the URL or in like google.com. You're going to look in Google Maps, and in 2025 you're going to look in a chatbot, right? So those are the three kinds of online searches that people are doing these days. And to rank well there's a few different internet homes you're going to need. The most important being a website, right? Happily, I probably live you on the call, have great websites at PushPress. So websites really matter. I think it's a core fishing net because again, if a prospect is looking for you through any of those three kinds of online searches, or even if their friend tells their prospect friend about you, they're going to go and Google you and they're going to go to your website. So having a website that loads well, that makes it immediately clear who it is you help and the outcomes you create and exactly what to do next is very, very, very important. The other thing I'll say about this briefly, I'm sure a lot of you know, but a lot of ranking well in the SEO, frankly, is just about the technical creation of the page, right? If
Mm,
the page is technically loading poorly and doesn't play well with Google, that's going to penalize you. And you're going to be less likely to rank higher up in a Google search or Google Map search. Um, there's two other online platforms we need to have as our homes. Okay. So we have the website, that's probably the core one. And remember, I got to be immediately clear who you help, the results you create, what I should do next. Usually give me contact on the path to do something. The two other homes are going to be your Instagram profile and your Google business profile. These
mm.
both matter and for different reasons. Instagram profile should mirror your website's headline of who you help, the exact outcomes you create, what to do next. And this is where people of a certain generation are going to be more likely to look and might double check. They might scroll through photos to see, are there people that look like me? Is this a place where people that are aspirational to me and relatable to me are training? Can I see myself there? But the Instagram is an important place, not so much to post a ton as a fishing pole. I don't really think that works as well in 2025. The algo is not going to be very friendly to you unless your content is really amazing. You
Mm.
should post, but you should post so it looks like the lights are open because that's a fishing net. When a prospect is looking for a gym, they're going to search best trainer, best gym, best whatever near me. They might look on the Google Maps. If that's the case, the website and Google Business Profile matter the most. But if they're searching Google, they're probably going to go and look at your Instagram. So I think having a clear, well-designed Instagram profile is a piece of this. And the final thing about Google Business Profile, a lot of you probably know this, but as a reminder, the Google Business Profile is very important for coming up in any Google search. It's also very important, particularly the reviews are very important for coming up in chat searches. So I think like the real talk is I'm a little skeptical that anybody knows exactly yet what really matters to optimize for chatbot queries, but it does seem the reviews are heavily weighted and they're best practice anyway, because that's very, very helpful for showing up in both a regular Google search and if they're searching on Google Maps. So
Mark,
the yeah,
When you say chatbot, are you talking about like the AI responses from the Google search and like Chat GPT and
uh,
stuff like that?
all of them. Yeah. So this would be AI searches in Google search if you're using an AI platform like Perplexity. And specifically, I'm really talking about like actually in the platforms. The most common ones, of course, being Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, maybe Grok. But essentially, those are, a lot of them are now real time searching the web. So making sure that
Okay.
we have both, beyond the scope of today, but yeah, it's going to be helpful to have content on there that aligns with the search terms of various queries people might be having. But at a minimum, having some system in your gym to drive reviews is going to show Google that this place is active. And the last little pro tip about Google Business Profile, and my suggestion really operationalize this for you is once a week when you do like some Instagram posting. And I don't think most gym owners should probably post 7 days a week. It's probably overkill. But once a week, just take whatever you're posting on Instagram and post it on Google Business Profile. Because again, we want to be telling Google that the lights
Hmm.
are on, this place is open, and we're active. And there are some suggestion that that is going to improve your search ranking. Okay. So I'll pull up there in case there's some other questions. Then we'll talk briefly about referrals as a fishing net. And then we'll transition with a little bit more detail about the three core strategies to drive new leads.
Does anybody have any questions about anything that Mark has discussed so far? This is really good information.
I'm
Um,
also seeing Jennifer writes there the push press review system and grow is amazing. Yeah, that's going to be epic, but that's built in. That's super important.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I talk a little bit about the Jim Happy review system that we have with it that's attached to Grow, and then the website that PushPress develops through the Grow platform. All I know, I'm not a product or a tech guy at this company, but I get to see all the behind the scenes work and the amount of effort that goes into making sure that our websites play super nice and play
Yeah.
super well with the Google search,
Yep. Yep.
and all that. It's pretty mind boggling. But you're saying the things that affirm the notions that I had about the
Okay.
importance of, hey, weekly activity on your Google My Business. Take that, like, that's an awesome tip that I hadn't heard. Just take something that you're posting in Instagram once a week and make sure that Google has it in its
Yep.
My Business profile so that it knows that you're being active there, and it's going to reinforce your search engine um, results. That's great stuff. Does anybody have any questions? Cool. Looks like we can move on, Mark.
All
You
right.
good?
Cool. So the second thing we do, right? We ask for a friend, okay? And here's the interesting thing. You have referral systems that are fishing nets and referral systems that are fishing poles. Okay, so I promise we're gonna get to three big poles in 1 minute. I'm gonna give you a little bit more detail about the pros and cons. But referral system is a fishing net is an always available evergreen offer that all of your clients know. If a friend mentions, hey, I'm kind of looking for a gym. Do you like that place? You having fun at that gym? The client knows, oh, yeah, I'm actually having a great time. And in fact, if you're interested in coming in with me, they give half off their first month to any friend of mine, and then I would get half off my next billing cycle, right? They might not say in those words, but the key thing here is we want to make it very easy for your clients to invite their friends to take an action and to know what to do if they're functioning as a net. If a friend asks them out of hand, oh, by the way, how is your gym? You want the client to be able to receive that fish sheet in the net and know what to tell them to do. Okay. Now, here's the thing to understand. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but typically, a evergreen, always available referral incentive is something for the client's friend and something for the client, right? We can debate about what makes sense. It's probably different things you should do with different models. But the key thing to know about it is that the mere existence of this always available evergreen offer, although it's great that you have it, is not going to drive leads in and of itself. Okay. It's really more of a fishing net, right? It's there if a client's friend asks about something, and I'd say this, you can get more results there by continually reminding your clients that it exists because they're just going to forget. They're going to forget that you rely on referrals. Even if they like you, they're busy, they got stuff going on. So you can decide how to do that. But, a typical way of integrating that into the client journey would be telling them about it maybe at the beginning of a trial. You could tell them about it at point of sale of a membership. You could tell them about it 3 months in. You could also, one thing I like, this is very simple to do. If you already have one of these, say just remind your clients every like 6 months it exists. Because you're just going to forget, right? And every time you remind them, they'll be like, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. And certainly if you do any kind of one on one check ins, like a goal review session, you can build that in as like, I always remind you, this is always where I remind you that we love working with people like you. Is there anybody in your life that you can think of? Dot, dot, dot. Okay. So the advantage of the always on, evergreen, always available referral offer is it functions as a net. You're training your client what to do, what to say if their friends happen to mention that they're interested. The downside is it is definitionally a net, right? We're being a little bit passive here. And when people can do things whenever, they do them never. The downside of this is it's always available. You're not gating, you're not saying like, hey, it goes away after X date. So the client doesn't really have much of a time bound reason to take action if they can't think of somebody offhand. Okay. So now we now segue into our three core phishing polls. So let's talk about the referral offer first, which, like I said, that's the one. If there's one, I think probably everybody benefits from, it's this. So if the phishing poll referral offer is an always available evergreen offer that's not time sensitive, a time sensitive referral offer is something you do a few times per year where now you're shaking the lead fruit from the lead tree. You have some time bound reason for the client to take action because either their friend is getting some additional extra cool thing and or the client might get some extra cool thing. Again, beyond the scope of the details to really dig into all the versions we could do for the purpose of today's conversation. But I'll tell you offhand a few that tend to work really well that I like best. I'm a big fan of a Bring a Buddy week. You do this maybe two, maybe three times per year. And if you do any of these too often, by the way, they'll stop working because they'll just become noise. But
Yep.
even in my gym in New Jersey, which is a small group, by the way, it's not a massive large group model. It's even easier doing a large group model. It's like next week, your friends can come train unlimited for free. So if you have somebody that's been interested in joining us, instead of whatever the usual incentive is, they now have a time-bound reason to take action now. It's valuable. It's easy to understand. It's come in for as many workouts as you want next week. And then, of course, you need a system to then drive them into your sales conversation to invite them to take the next step and stick around if they are liking what they see. Okay, so Bring a Buddy is a classic one. Another classic one is if you have, for instance, a paid front end offer. Typically what a lot of gyms do is for the holidays, you let your clients know, hello, dear valued member, right? Rather than getting stressed about what to get your friends for the holiday, you are welcome to give a free month of training to any of your friends. And then the key thing here, it's got to be time bound, time sensitive. A lot of people do this, but they forget that if it's like, and they can do it whenever they want, that's cool. That's not bad. It's still not a bad idea, but there's no reason to take action. And when people can do things whenever, they tend to do them never. So
Right.
typically what you do here is you start promoting this in the beginning of December. You have to remind people about it a few times. And the thing is their friend has to maybe claim by the end of December and start by either mid-January or start by the end of January. Because otherwise you can run into the issue where they either don't claim it or they claim it, they don't use it. So we want to make that time bound, right? The other one that I won't go into great detail, but I'll say if you have a large group gym and you have a lot more volume, you can do more robust give to get contests. Again, in a lot of the large group class-based boutique fitness brands, that's a really big thing. That's where you have like an elaborate month-long thing, and you're giving points for things like reviews and for tagging on Insta and for bringing in leads, and you're giving away a flat screen and a Yeti cooler and. So I think that's really cool, and it's more valuable when you have a larger volume of clientele. And frankly, you have the back of house capacity to run it. So
Mm.
I'll pull up there that. So I hope that's clear. There is a referral always evergreen offer that's a phishing net. That's a little bit about the phishing pull and I think how to do it effectively. I'll pull up there before I go into the other two, just in case there's other questions or anything else to discuss.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you
Mhm.
can feel free when Mark pauses to come off mute. I have everybody muted, but you can come off mute and then ask the question, or you can just post it up in the chat. And I think actually there is a Q&A box if you guys want to use that.
Oh, fun.
Um, Mark, a couple. It's interesting because you're naming a bunch of strategies that I had previously used at my old gyms, and now I think I told you I'm looking to open up a gym. We just bought a building
Oh,
in
nice.
here in Kansas City, and I'm just going through my head like, hey, which of these are we going to use again? And the answer is all of them. Everything that you're talking
Yeah,
about, we're going
yeah,
to
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
The You said something that was super interesting about the the referral thing. Oh yeah, I it clicked for us when we realized that telling our members about the referral program wasn't enough because
Mhm.
they didn't know what to say to their friends
Yeah.
in order to get them to join. It was like
Yep.
you have to educate your members on what to actually say. Oh, this is how you contact the gym. They want you to email, and when you email, they're going to have you come in for an intro session or something like that. It
Yep.
was imperative that we started educating our clients on educating their friends. Another thing is, I know Pat had put it in chat that he had good success with flash sales, quote unquote, for the offer. I'm wondering if did you did you ever have anything? I know Black Friday's coming up.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of like off a little bit of a tangent. Did you ever have anything for Black Friday?
Yes, yeah, we definitely have, and in fact, yeah. So first of all, I love that Patrick's saying on here that there's a New Year's flash sale, a start of summer flash sale,
Yeah.
back to school, Black Friday. Yeah, I love all those. I mean, in general, I think at the end here, maybe we could talk a little bit how I think about marketing and promotion calendars, because I do think part of the key thing we all need to be doing is, in addition to generating new leads, we need to go back to our existing contact database of people that already know us and like us, trust us, of contacts we've already paid for, to shake the lead fruit from the lead tree. And giving them incentive and a reason to take some action, I think really, really matters. So, Patrick, I love that you're doing that. John has a really great question here. So, and this is, you do hear this, right? So John writes, I feel like the idea of discounts is frowned upon in the industry. Various mentors I've worked with, and I get, but can you describe the difference between a discount and an offer? I believe offers structured right, even if they include a discount, are valuable to us. So yeah, so hot take. I strongly think that and here's why. Like I strongly two things. Okay, I don't want to come out like too hot takey. Um, the reality is people do things when they have a compelling reason to do them, right? When they take action. Now, here's another thing to understand about marketing and sales, which we know to be true, but I'll just say it out loud. People don't buy when we're ready, they buy when they're ready,
Yep.
right? People don't buy when we're ready, they buy when they're ready, right? And these fishing poles, right? You want to get out there, but the reality is, like, you can't make somebody come into your gym. You can't make them sign up for membership. They're just not ready to do it. So the key is we just have to be there regularly, and we have to periodically give them a time sensitive reason for them to take action if it's something that they're thinking about, right? So you might have somebody opt into an ad, which we'll talk about in a second here, and they might be on your list for like a month or a year, and you might be going back to the well, make like Pat's doing, make them a offer, every couple of months, so they have a time sensitive reason, and they keep ignoring it because it's just not the right time. But then in 9 months, they have that scary doctor's appointment, right? And they're thinking about it, right? And maybe you're doing email marketing, so they've been seeing your gym at least in their subject line, even they just been deleting it. And it just happens to be the timing works out such that you do some sort of time sensitive offer. You give them like a 5-day window for them to come in, and they have some special reason to take action to come in. Now, John, here's where this knits together. Okay, I'm not advocating for, in most situations, I would almost never advocate for a forever discount. I would also note the discount doesn't need to be huge and massive, because remember, they are buying because they're ready, right? That's why they're ready to take action. You're just giving them some reason to take action now. So, in general, when I think about a marketing calendar, if I'm going back to the well of these, what I call these never been clients that have not taken action yet, but they've opted in at some point, I'm not like offering crazy, like half off like membership for forever. Like that would be a bad idea. But it might be like the low bear offer is usually 14 days of training for $99.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I do 14 days of training for $49, or 14 days of training for $1, or 28 days of training for $99, or six personal training sessions, a small group personal training sessions for $1, or. And the thing you'll notice about that, that's, I don't think sneaky, but it's all kind of the same thing, right? And the reality is we're not trying to make money on the front end offer. Now, admittedly, I know there's a whole dialogue one can have about, client financing liquidation, the cost to acquire clients. I'm not going to get into the nerdery about that. But to my mind, in most markets, for most gyms and most models, the key thing is getting them over the hump to try the service in the first place. And that discount doesn't need to be massive, but giving them, even if it's just a psychological reason, because at the end of the day, too, for you as the gym owner, if your typical gym doing, $300,000 to $1 million a year, it's not that big a deal to you if that client paid $49 or 99 or even $1 up front. The real dream, of course, is they sign up and they're paying you a reasonable average revenue per month and then stick around for 2 to 3 years. So thank you for that question, John, and thank you for that clarification.
So
Um,
real quick,
yeah,
just to simplify, because I love what you're saying, Mark. This stuff is gold, right? The difference between the discount and the offer is that the offer can be a discount, but just it's a time limit. What was the word that you used?
time bound. Yes, time sensitive.
Time
Yeah.
bound
Yep.
discount that aids in them getting over the psychological hump. It's just a
Yep.
front end offer, and then they go on a normal paying membership.
Yeah.
It's different in the sense of giving like 15% discount for the lifetime of the membership. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction, and I think that is what the difference is that
Yeah. Yeah.
separate it. Okay, cool. That's
Yeah,
good.
and
That's
you
good.
you could, for what it's worth, too. I think another point of clarification, because it's really the having a compelling reason is more
Yeah.
important than it being a discount. You could run what's sometimes called a premium price front end offer, right? A front end offer doesn't need to be low bearer, though it often is. You can have a premium price front end offer like a challenge or something where it's actually like a bigger commitment and a bigger investment for more bells and whistles. And that could be something if you only do, one, two, maybe three times per year, that can be another time sensitive reason to take action when the individual is ready. I so have one more question in here. Ryan says, great point about when they are ready, not us. Do you have a follow up offer or something ready if the time bound doesn't work for an individual in the moment? Um, yes. Okay. So here's my favorite thing, Ryan. Okay. So we'll talk very, very briefly about my thoughts on follow up, and then I'll let the cat out of the bag for this marketing calendar. And I just want to make sure I close the loop here. We talk a little bit more about paid ads and local biz partnerships. So when somebody opts in, when someone raises their hands, either in response to maybe a Facebook ad, or they've given you their contact with a local business promotion, or they've gone to your website through Google and they've opted in for whatever the first thing is. And for most of you, it's probably some step towards either booking a phone call or working, doing some front end offer or something. Okay. Particularly the better you are at marketing, the higher percentage of those individuals you're not going to get in the door, right? If you're not very good at marketing, I mean, it's with love, but if you're only getting like 2 to 3 leads per week or like one lead per week on average, well, most of them are going to come in and most of them are going to sell because they had a hard time finding you. It was a gauntlet even to get to you. Their friend had to, beg them to come in here. They were really ready to make a change, right? You start getting very good at marketing, and I got gyms that sometimes do 25 to 40 leads per week. You're going to have breakage, right? A percent, a growing percentage, the more leads you have are not going to come in. But here's the thing, that's okay because we're going back to the well and well again and again. So for me, my dream in the year 2025, there's different schools of thought on this. I used to say the 14 days really mattered, and I still think you should follow up a decent amount for the 14 days. And in 2025, I'm like, it's like 3 days. You have like 3 days where you want to borderline be obnoxious. If I were in your shoes, and I am. I would double call them like twice per day at least for the first 3 days. I'd send them an email and a text message those first couple days. Listen, some people are going to opt out. Some people are going to be a little bit like annoyed. And if you're doing paid ads, I have to warn you, you're going to talk to people that are like, I never signed up for this. What is this? I'll spare you, but there's some technical limitations since a lot of the iOS updates a couple years ago that just made paid advertising crappier than it was in the heyday. And that just is what it is. But the math still works if you're willing to play a volume game. So to Ryan's question, well, what do we do if they don't take an action, if they don't move forward? To my mind, I'm just going to go back every like 4 to 6 weeks. If you're a never been client and you've given me your name, number, and phone number, and you didn't decline, and that's different, right? Because if you say, please don't contact me anymore, no problem. But if you are no longer a freshie, you're now my ghosty, right? Which means you didn't come in, but you didn't tell me no. I'm just going to circle back every 4 to 6 weeks with a different version of an offer that is, it gives you a time sensitive reason to move forward. And I'm going to do that with different, sometimes I might be transparent about what the offer is. And as we've said, again, it's not a massive discount. It's just like, usually it's $99 for 14 days, but between now and Tuesday, it's it's $49 for 14 days, right? It's like not mind blowing. It's the same play. Your funnel's the same. Um, you could also do things like, one of my favorite moves is crediting Dean Jackson, one of my favorite marketers, a version of what he calls the 9-word email, where you just ask them to raise your hand if they're interested in a thing. So maybe you do some texts and emails. We're looking for 5 local men and women looking to achieve this specific result over the next 4 weeks. I have 5 spots available. Would you like to hear more? And just like with all sales, you're just selling the next step, right? So
Mm.
sometimes I'm upfront about what the offer is. Sometimes I'm just asking if they're interested in hearing more about an offer. And there's different schools of thought about this. Like, I used to really say like 6 to 8 weeks for the never been clients. A very dear friend of mine contracted with the CMO of one of the most successful fitness franchise brands of all time, and she was like, every week, go back every week, send them an offer. Now, that seems a little intense to me. I think like I think they were in a modality where maybe it's a little bit more inherently transactional. There might be such a thing as too much for gym owners, but most gym owners, to be completely frank, they develop a contact list and then never talk to them again if they don't opt in for that first round. Maybe they send them an offer here and there, but I think most gym owners could do this a little bit more regularly. And my thinking is this: like, look, if you've opted in with your name, number, and email on a page that said book a free intro to learn more, and you didn't tell me to stop contacting you, I'm just assuming you got busy and you want me as your coach to reach out. I'm assuming you got busy. I'm assuming your kid got sick. I'm assuming your boss got mad at you, whatever. And you know how I know that? Because I'm a person. These things happen to me too, right? I
Mm.
always use it as an example. I did an executive coaching program called Strategic Coach for several years, and I really liked it. And I opted in 2014. And I opted out of the emails like a month later because I'm an email hygiene person. And they called me every 3 months for 7 years because I didn't tell them to stop calling me. They couldn't email me anymore. I had given them the indicator, don't email me. But instead of assuming I was not interested, they assumed maybe he just doesn't want to get emailed by us. We'll call him every couple months. And now I was probably going to soon sign up anyway, but I wasn't annoyed when they called me. I never picked up. I never told them to not call me because I'm too lazy. I don't care. And then sure enough, in 2021, I think, or 22, I signed up for strategic coach. Now, I'm not suggesting that like that is exactly the model for a lot of us, but I do think sometimes as gym owners, and I've done this too, we get a little afraid about being annoying when someone has like asked for our help. So at any rate, um, I'm going to pull up there, but hopefully that gives you some insight that a lot of the value of generating these new leads is not what happens in the first 3 days. Though hopefully some come forward. It's developing a system, a growing list of people in your community that know you exist, that you're just going to continue to be there to try to be helpful, to give them an invitation to take a next step if it's time. And then the larger that list is, it does become a game of numbers because they don't buy when we're ready, they buy when they're ready. So I'll pull up there in case there's any clarifications. I know we're running short on time. I'll do some rapid fire Facebook ad thoughts and some business partnership thoughts if there's no
Well,
follow-ups.
Mark, hey, if you gotta go, then that makes sense. But this stuff is tremendous. I do. While people, if anybody needs to type in a message in the Q&A or in the chat, go for it. I do want to circle back to that point that you said that was really impactful for me. The better you are at marketing, what was it? The better that you are at
Yeah, the
marketing,
better
the
you
worse.
are at marketing, and this is perverse, so I'm saying this flippantly, but the better you are at marketing, the worse your conversion is going to be.
Yeah, and that I was like, well, you're absolutely right because you're going to be getting if you're really good at building awareness in your community, everybody, even the people that don't need you or that aren't your ideal clients, they're still going to know about you.
Yep.
And when they are presented with the offer, they're going to turn down the offer, so your conversion rate's going to be lower. So it's interesting to think that hey, I'm getting really good at marketing and my conversion rate is getting worse, and I'm
Yeah.
growing this list of people to talk to and to connect to in order to get them in the door. And you started talking about the day-to-day actions and the systems that we're going to need to manage that list. And I know that's probably one of the biggest hangups for many business owners is that they don't know how to organize or how to manage or what to execute on day to day in
Yeah.
order to actually get people in the door, signed up. So can we, I didn't see any new questions pop in. Can we
Mhm.
transition to, hey, what do I execute on day to day? How
Yep.
do I
Yep.
manage this?
Yep. So, I think that's like very high level. You're thinking about what to do day to day. There is like a hierarchy of marketing and sales activities you should do if you want to grow your gym. Right? If you don't want to grow your gym or you're happy where you're at, it's not common, but can happen. Then I would say you can deprioritize this and maybe focus on other stuff. But if you want more leads and you want more clients, in order of priority, the first thing you're going to want to do is like follow up with the freshies, right? So if you have a hot lead right then and there, like make sure you're actively reaching out relatively aggressively in the first 72 hours to anyone that has raised their hand. Okay, that's probably the first priority. And it should go without saying, but obviously doing the actual calls and doing the sales conversations with people that are interested. Okay. Then as far as then you move on to, okay, well, how do I generate like new leads? Okay. Well, first of all, part of generating new leads is what we just talked about, which is the reactivation of old leads or aged leads. And that might mean your day-to-day activity are creating and running some sort of calendar to send out these offers. So when we work with people in the unicorn side, I write it for them. So every quarter, I just give everybody an offer that's written with like the emails and the Instagram captions, the Google Business Profile posts, and the text messages on what to send on what day, and they can just sub in their name, the name of the gym, and then change the offer because different models will require different offers, of course. Um, so if you don't have that, which is okay, you totally can just do it on your own, and you can kind of batch it. You can just look over the next 3 months. Okay, what are the timings that I want to do offers to my list of never been clients? You can also do offers to your former clients, which are also very valuable to stay in dialogue with. You'll probably talk to
Mm,
them a little bit differently. So part of the day-to-day stuff, besides the follow-up for hot leads, which is always number one, is of course building the systems, right? And that shouldn't take a ton of time, but you do need to kind of build the machine if you're going to do a marketing calendar, if you're not just copy pasting in mind. And then, of course, you want to be executing the system, right? Which is the actual building in a platform, like a PushPress, where you are now loading and setting up these emails and text messages, things to go out to shake the lead fruit from the lead tree of your aged leads. Okay. Now, the other thing that we need to be doing every day are the activities to generate the new leads, right? We've already talked about a little bit. There's obviously the time sensitive referral offers, though they kind of live in the marketing calendar, right? If you think about that, they are essentially the current client offers are what these other offers are to your never been clients and your former clients, right? Because those are probably the three big buckets I think about how we're talking to people. And those are different audiences. So the good news is they're sort of independent of each other. So then you're like, okay, well, how do I generate new leads like on a daily basis? What are the things I can do every day? Okay, well, now we've come back to paid ads. Good news is paid ads it's a technical skill. You're probably contracting with a vendor to do this on your behalf. I have some recommendations if anybody wants to hear any. And for the most part, you are mostly, if the ads are going well, most of your work on the paid ads is just dealing with the follow up volume because you're going to get high volume. They're going to be colder. You're going to have to hustle through some lower quality leads. That's just the name of the game. Quality and quantity are going to have some inverse correlations. Okay. Then you have other things you can do to proactively get out there in the community and obliterate obscurity. So these might be things like a weekly quota for talking to local business owners. These might be things like potential on how much time you have available might be a weekly quota for how many strangers am I going to go out there and have a conversation with, right? And these other ones get a little bit more seasonal, right? It could be, something like having a table at a local township day is not going to be a daily or weekly activity. But I think here's another way to make this even simpler for you. If I were in your shoes, and I am. What I might consider doing is if it's really important to you to grow your gym and get more leads and more clients, I would start by just tracking on a weekly basis. I wouldn't even have a goal. I wouldn't even have a goal. I track on a weekly basis in discrete time blocks. How many minutes per week are you working on marketing and lead generating activities?
mm,
Because what happens is quite often it feels like we're working a lot, and this is a larger topic that intersects with time management. It feels like we're doing a lot of stuff and we're answering emails and you're working on things, but in practice, you might discover that you're only spending 30 to 45 minutes per week on activities that are going to generate new leads. And yeah, I might not expect you to have a ton of results if that's the amount of time going into it. And again, you have to be canny. The different strategies, I hope that's the meta takeaway from this, are going to have different kinds of returns. And you have to be canny about what works for you, your skill set, your time available, your money available, your market. But ideally, we're doing things on a regular basis that are moving the ball forward, whether it's building systems like a marketing calendar, whether it's following up with leads, whether it is reaching out to local business partnerships, whether it is overseeing your Facebook ads, because even if you have a good vendor, you're going to have to oversee it. So those are examples of things I think need to be happening probably on a daily and weekly basis. And I'll pull up there for any other interjections or questions.
So I know Patrick and John both posted in the chat. Pat is asking about the local business partnerships, and
Mhm.
I know we're running short on time. I want to be completely
Yeah,
respectful of your time, Mark.
that's no
Do you
worries.
think, and you don't need to commit to anything right now, do you think it would be more appropriate, more beneficial to maybe do another call similar to this where we specifically talk about local business partnerships? Is there enough meat on that bone where you feel like you would want to do another call like this specifically
I'm
for that? Or
I mean, I'm always happy to do another a call. I don't know that we'd have like an hour to talk about the good news. So I can probably give some thoughts quickly, but I would say this: there's obviously a ton of other things we can talk about here too, and it might be fun to do one that's even more of a Q&A and bring the questions. I really appreciate, by the way, Patrick and John, great questions, great thoughts in here about the stuff. Um, so yeah, there's definitely more to share. I can maybe, with your permission, Zach, maybe I'll just give a couple business partnership kinds of
absolutely,
things
go
really
for it.
quickly, and then
Yes.
yeah, I'd be thrilled to come back in. I hope it's clear to everybody this is all I think about all day long. So this is like the little kid that loves video games who's like, oh wait, you like video games too? So this is a great pleasure and a privilege to get to talk about this with you because it's all I think about. So for some business partnership stuff, I'll just say in brief a few takeaways. The first thing about business partnerships are you just need to do more volume than you think. My target throughput, I think usually you're looking at 4 to 5%. What does
Hmm,
that mean? It means if you want like five good business partnerships cranking, I would talk to 100 businesses. And
yep.
I would just plan it's just going to take months. It's going to be a long time and it's going to be a lot of dead ends, a lot of people that don't want to work with you, a lot of people that don't know how to play ball, a lot of people that, for all sorts of reasons, are just not even going to entertain a conversation, people that are entertain a conversation, but no matter how much you're doing your best to sort of lead them to what's mutually beneficial, we just kind of can't figure out the thing, or you do all the right things and it just doesn't work. Again, it's a higher risk, high return strategy. The two takeaways here that I think are amazing is, first of all, talk to franchisees. This, I'm just like, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. So part of why I'm an idiot is like, at MFF, candidly, we had one great partnership with Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and we kind of never figured it out. And part of me is like, maybe it was just because Hell's Kitchen is a tough neighborhood. I don't know. The new owner's doing better. I think I just didn't do enough volume. And
Hmm,
because that business scaled, I will say business partnerships often require owner juice. It's not impossible, but it's harder to have an employee do it. It's like when the local small business owner goes in, it's kind of a different conversation often. But if I were in your shoes, and I am, I
you
would
are.
recommend targeting franchisees, right? So our gym in New Jersey, we've done some local businesses, but I'll tell you, it's been like Hand and Stone, the local, the Stretch Lab that's in our same strip mall, by the way. We have a new Bar 3 owner, and we're a small group gym that they're like, yeah, let's do lead boxes for each other, right? Uh, the appliables put our flyers in all of their bags. I mean, so when you talk to franchisees, they are not an artisan, coffee maker that decided they wanted to open up a coffee shop and may or may not know about business. They're a business person that opened up a business, and they're
Hmm,
being told by their corporate overlords, "You better go out there and find other local businesses to, to cross promote with." So they'll be like, "Ah," when you walk in, they'll be very excited to see you. As far as what the offer is, Patrick, I think you asked, curious to know my opinions on having a simple offer for long extended periods of time or different offers over time. Uh, Let me come back to that in 1 second. The last thing I want to say about local business partnerships, ideally you're going in with a giving hand and thinking, okay, what can I do to be helpful for them? And for the most part, it's like buy their stuff, promote them to your clients, promote them to your audience via your email and Instagram, let them put up like a flyer in your space if it's okay with it. What you will want most of the time is a plastic clear lead box that goes on their desk, the well designed, that says win a free month. That's your raffle. And then you collect the leads every like month or two. And then you can give away a free month on whatever pulse you think is fair every like, 2 months, 3 months. Like you're just looking to get bodies in the door in the beginning. So I tend to be a volume guy. I'd rather have more people try the service because I'm looking to obliterate obscurity. But at the very least, remember, everybody wins the second place prize, which is some time sensitive offer which is again the same play you're doing all the time. And I hope it's clear because it sounds like, I think at first glance, it sounds like, oh, I'm talking about all the stuff. I'm like, no, it's the same. I'm just doing the same thing over and over. It's the same offer. Patrick, a follow-up question I do want to speak to, really great question, is curious to know opinions about having a simple offer for a long extended period of time or having different offers over time. I tend to like both. And here's what I mean by that. Your low barrier offer is akin to a fishing net, right? Akin to the referral offer that's always available in Evergreen. It's great because it's obvious, it's always available. It makes it an obvious, easy way to get started. It's clear, simple, we understand it, but it's always available. Yeah, so that's kind of a downside. Then you have your time sensitive referral offers, right? Your bring a buddies, your give a friend a free month, your give to get contest. Those are time sensitive. So I like periodically to layer in time sensitive offers that will juice the low bearer offer and give people a time sensitive reason to take action. Because when people can do things whenever, they do them never. Now, the final thing I'll say briefly, Patrick, within there, I think I'm hearing an implicit question, which might be like, should you change the low bearer offer sometimes? And the answer is maybe you could. I don't think it's wrong to test different kinds of low bearer offers. Like, I don't know, maybe in some markets, maybe $99 for 14 days doesn't do as well as I'm making up like $99 for a month, or maybe it doesn't do as well as $49 for 14 days. I tend to think all that stuff is kind of academic at the price point we're doing. So as long as it's reasonable, it's probably fine. Just anecdotally, I have a lot of gyms, even my gym in New Jersey, even Mark Fisher Fitness for that matter, can go like years without changing the front end offer. But it is probably fair to say, Patrick, some of them probably are slightly more attractive. So it wouldn't be wrong to test, but I would probably focus on creating something that's reasonable and good enough based on your understanding of psychology, and then put the extra time and energy to follow up the hot leads, build out some sort of promo calendar. So going back to the age leads, and then do the daily activities that will generate new leads.
Cool. The context behind that is we had been a free trial gym for a long period of time, switched
Okay.
to a paid trial gym,
Yeah.
and then we use the free trial as essentially kind of that lever that we can pull.
Yeah.
So
That's
and really
yeah.
what it is like, how long do you ride? I think we did 7 days for $49, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, how long do we do that versus going
Yeah.
7 days for $7 or 21
Totally.
days for and so it's like
100%.
just probably play around with the pricing, and then when you find something
I think that's
that's
it.
working. Okay.
I think that's it, because I do like that's actually the reason why I don't think there's actually anything wrong with a free front end offer, except for you just don't have other levers to pull.
Hmm.
Right. Like that's why I like a paid front end. I also do think you're going to get a little bit better buy in. Now you're going to get lower volume, less people are going to buy whatever the thing is. I think that's true too. But I still think it's going to come out in the wash to your favor. Because here's, as a final comment here, I'll pull this up and we'll bring this to a close. One of the complexities we run into is if you swim, certainly as I do, like with great love in like the gym guru thought leader industrial complex, you're hearing a lot of different kinds of information suggestions, which almost always makes sense in certain contexts. But you know, a class-based world is a little bit different than a small group-based world, is different than a sports performance world, is different than a one-on-one world, is different than a CrossFit. And again, there's going to be some similarities. But for instance, if you're doing a class-based boutique fitness franchise in New York City, typically it's going to be, 1 to 3 classes for a discount and or maybe a free first class, right? Orange Theory, by the way, ran that play for years. One free class, dead simple play. They get you in. I do my needs analysis up front. You do your class. I do the offer at the end. It's a cancel any time. You can have a very junior person sell it from the front desk. And that worked amazingly well. But that's like a slightly less premium priced, more volume based brand that also had a lot of like brand visibility, which is different for independent brick and mortars. So the unsatisfying, annoying answer is that like everything can work. And I affirm you're thinking about it correctly.
Hmm. That's
Okay.
great. That's great. Do you want to take a stab at John's question, or do you got to
Yeah,
jump?
we'll do we'll do this quick one, and then I am going to have to jump. But yeah, let's get it done. John asked, would you recommend lead forms or landing page funnel for meta ads? The a perennial question. Unfortunately, my answer is that you kind of have to test. I think they both can work, and exactly as you might imagine, typically speaking. So, for those not familiar, if you're running a paid ad and it's a lead form, you're essentially making it way less friction to capture the lead. And this usually means a higher volume at a cheaper cost per lead. If you drive people to a landing page and then make them fill out some information, you're creating just a little bit more friction. You're getting them off of Facebook. So you will tend to have a lower volume, a higher cost per lead, and in theory, a slightly higher quality of lead because they had to jump through like a little bit more of a hoop. So again, it's hard to say outside testing. I think in a vacuum from, I got to say, this is maybe surprising. In most gyms in 2025, the lead quality has just gotten so brutal for meta ads. I tend to slightly prefer landing pages, but a lead forms can work as well. And unfortunately, we're left with the unsatisfying truth that marketing is another word for test, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't really care about cost per lead. We care about cost per acquisition. We care about over a 1 to 3 month period, how many people that I know came in from a paid ad made it to membership, because that number can be quite sobering. Like, because a lot of people look at CAC for total number of new members compared to total spend. And I like to look at, don't tell your ad vendor I told you this. I like to look at vendor fee plus paid ads. And then I'm only looking at cost per acquisition for people that I know came in from my paid ads, because that sometimes can be sobering. Because, right, you're doing good with like referrals and local business partnerships. Your CAC looks okay. Then you look at your CAC for your actual paid ad acquisition. You're like, oh boy, it's costing me $3,000 for a new member. I don't know that those numbers work. So anyway, oh yeah, thank you, Zach. Cost of customer acquisition cost. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
I just realized, like, when I was learning all this stuff,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
took me a while to
Appreciate
learn
that.
all this stuff. Mark, a wealth of information and a treasure trove. This was a great call. I know I'm already getting some phenomenal feedback about everything that we've covered so far. And I would love to have you back on to talk about some other specific strategies and tactics
Yeah,
in more detail, if possible. I'll
of
talk with you
course.
offline about that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if there's is there a way that people can reach out to you or maybe ping you with specific questions, or if, what
Yeah.
would you like people to do moving forward if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that in general, if you're looking for like tons of like free stuff, you can go to businessunicorns.com or follow us at Business for Unicorns on Instagram. I mentioned before, I think the highly relevant resource is the Little Book of Gym Marketing Secrets, which
Mm.
it's not a book, it's a pamphlet. I apologize. It's like a 25-minute read, but I think it's very simple. If you go to gymmarketingsecretsbook.com, you can get that there. And then I'm always available, by the way. I think it's clear. Like, I love this stuff. I want to be helpful. You can always just email me, mark@businessunicorns.com. For just a quick bullet pointed question, like I'm always happy to answer. That's always a gift to me to give me the opportunity to be helpful in any way I can. So feel free to hit me up, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to nerd out and talk about video games again soon, because I like them and you
Yeah,
like them.
I love video games. I'm just finding less and less time for them with the newborn.
Yeah. To be
Hey,
fair, I actually don't really play video games, but it's my stand-in for gym business nerd stuff. My video games is gym business stuff.
yeah, awesome. Thanks again, Mark. Everyone, thanks for coming out.
Pleasure.
This recording will be posted in Push Start. So, and I'm going to put timestamps. So if you want to reference anything that Mark specifically spoke about, it'll be there, and I'll announce when the next call is. Mark,
Amazing.
thanks again.
Thanks so much, Zach.
Everyone,
Pleasure.